I mean, I've gotten a lot of flack on my from some of the audience that looks at the videos and say that I'm kind of biased or whatever. First of all, I don't, as far as like tax. First of all,
Hmm.
I don't know tax. I never met tax. I don't have
Right.
nothing against them.
Right.
I would love to ask him questions, but you're the only one I've from his side that I've
Hmm.
talked to.
Hmm.
But something that keeps coming up is that, okay, the letter to the judge that was written by
Right.
a lawyer, and it's like, oh, he's kind of like dry snitching in that because he's pointing the finger to Troy, and it's like, oh, it's his lawyer. What is your response?
Let me ask you this: how many times was that letter brought up in the trial?
It was never brought up.
Never. Okay, so we ain't even. There's no need to talk about it then, because if that letter is like they trying to say this is snitching, okay, if you're saying that, then why in this letter is never brought up in trial at one time? Not once. It never came up. And F, right? Like he tried to say, he said, yo, he told me first, right? Okay.
Right. I said
This how you know that's bogus too, because if that's the case, then you would be in prison for the crime. So you saying you was a better teller? That's how it worked? We know it don't work like that. The first nigga who takes the deal gets the deal, right?
that.
You That's how it goes. So if this letter was so called telling on him, then why the fuck you ain't get charged with nothing of this in regards to that? And and why was the shit never brought up in court?
Mm.
Never. It never came up. Never was mentioned. Not one thing. And I want to address something else too, because I seen somebody say, "Oh, he also was trying to tell on Banger." That don't make sense because if my defense of a person who died that they saying that I killed, my defense is, and you were there, so you know that every time you couldn't bring up anything he really did in his past endeavors because they said you can't speak ill on the dead and you couldn't bring up his prior transgressions. But we got to be honest, bro. Niggas went up there with bad intent, with intent to do harm. Niggas ain't go up there just lollygagging doing bullshit. And that's according to his brother's story. That's not my story. That's his brother's story. That's the other girl who testified. That's her story. The nigga who was in the room that I know spoke to personally, that's his story. So none of these people, nobody's an angel in this situation.
I
You know what
understand.
I'm saying? We all was doing shit out here in the street. We all was running around doing shit over this shit, and you know what I mean. And shit was happening. You know what I'm saying? So nobody went up there with bad intent, and only way to defend myself in the sense of saying, yo, let's not, because they was trying to paint him as a security guard when we know that he's not no security guard. He's not no licensed security guard. He was never that. That was his friend. Yeah, he was, and he was using him as muscle. He was. You know what I'm saying? He was sending them places. He sent them to snuff McCone off the stage and all that shit. He sent him to beat the nigga up. And look, here we go again. Remember when they beat the journalism dude up? I think he was at Complex or one of them blogs or some shit like that.
It was
And they
Vice.
Banger beat him up. Why did he beat him up? Because he said Troy Ave music sucked. And he didn't when it did the same try to pull the same exact move again, and it just didn't work this time. It went bad. The shit went left. And niggas is not taking no accountability, bro, at all.
Yeah, I'll admit, that was something that kind of surprised me that Troy was running around like he was like Suge Knight or something.
Right. But look how he was doing it. He was doing it to niggas like McCorn and bullshit ass blog niggas. Like it was just fucked up. You know what I mean? But once again, bro, like you sent the nigga to do the same thing. That shit just ain't go right. You know what I mean? And this shit, this shit can't go wrong and then you lose and then you like, oh, I'm gonna just tell on everybody because I don't want to go to jail for these guns. So I'm about to start telling. That's kind of crazy. You know, streets become a myth and everything after you got caught. That slogan would be true if you wasn't doing none of that stuff. If you said I ain't into none of that because the streets is a myth, that would make sense. But you don't say it's a myth after you got caught because you don't want to do the time because you feel like you the golden goose and everybody else is, I guess, minions to you. You know what I mean? Niggas is just pieces on the chessboard to you, that's kind of wild, bro.
Yeah. But I would admit for the people just listening and watching that Montgomery was able to sneak in a couple of things of bang his
Hmm.
past.
Right,
Bang,
right,
yeah,
yeah, definitely, because and he was supposed to, because that's a valuable defense. The
that's his
person,
job.
because the way that they tried to paint it was that he was a security guard, and not being able to mention what he did, what the things that he was doing, would make it seem as if he was just an innocent person that was at his job that got killed while at work, and that's not what happened. So in order to defend myself, I had to say, well, this guy's not an angel. This guy was doing XYZ. That's not telling on somebody. Because the guy, first of all, they accusing me of killing the guy. I can't tell him. That don't even make sense. It's like, how you supposed to defend yourself? That don't make sense. You know what I mean? In a murder trial where they trying to paint it as like this guy was just at work and he was just on duty that day. And that wasn't the case. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? He wasn't no security. He wasn't no hired security man and all this other stuff. You know?